And we are live. Greetings, salutations, and welcome to the World Anvil World Building Podcast live. Today we are talking about travel guides in fictional places, fantasy travel guides in fictional worlds, both as an in-world document and as a presentation and means of storytelling. And who better to tell those stories but the Mer Lafferty and David Green? Thank you both so very much for joining me today.
I'm excited.
I'm also very excited. David, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Thanks for having me on there. Always happy to be on World Anvil, and the guys online are crazy as usual.
Yes, absolutely. The chat is going wild. We have bois left, right, and center, and a lot of excitement because, of course, we have just done a challenge about fictional travel worlds, travel guides, which we will be talking about later in the live stream. But first, let me introduce my fabulous guests, for they are far too modest to introduce themselves. Mer Lafferty has written 10 books as of 2026, 8 novellas, and 1 non-fiction book available at all the best bookstores, naturally. Her work has ranged from Star Wars to superhero fiction to afterlife fiction to paranormal fantasy to space murder. In fact, you may remember her for our Murders in Space podcast, which we did in one of the previous seasons with Mer as well. Plus 1 book supporting writers based on her award-winning podcast. After winning the 2013 Astounding Award for Best New Writer, her work has been nominated for the Hugo, Nebula, Parsec, Philip K. Dick, Manly Wade Wellman, and Podcast Peer Awards. Her podcast, Ditch Diggers with Matt Wallace, won the 2018 Best Fancast Hugo Award. She lives in Durham, not that Durham, in North Carolina, with her husband. She likes video games, tabletop games, murder mysteries, and dogs. Hopefully not all in the same story, because we know what happens to that dog. It's not good. You can, of course, find Mer on her website, which is going to be shared widely in the chat live and in the podcast underneath. And I'm very excited because Mer is also, one of those 10 books, is The Shambling Guide to New York City. Can you tell us just a little bit about that and why it's so relevant for fantasy travel guides, Mer?
Yeah, with Shambling Guide to New York City, it was kind of funny because I didn't realize until after the book was about to come out that I'd pretty much written Hitchhiker's Guide for Monsters. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was such a forming book for me when I was a teenager, and I just like soaked it all in and then forgot. I honestly don't know, but luckily
it's in there in the legacy code. This is what I'm hearing.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. And but yeah, it's like luckily the people who first made the comparison did so in a polite, like it's homage kind of way, not you copied, but it is essentially a Hitchhiker's Guide for Monsters. My main character has a job writing travel guides, and she gets a job with this new company that then she realizes that monsters are real and they travel too, and they need a way to approach the city in a safe and fun way, just like travel guides do for humans. And so the story is part look at New York from the monster's point of view and part, adventure of humans suddenly in the world of monsters trying to stay alive and do her job.
Incredible, and so relevant for this challenge, and such a fun concept. Of course, we also have the amazing David Green with us, a neurodivergent writer of the epic and the urban, the fantastical, the cozy, and the mysterious. With his character-driven dark fantasy series Empire of Ruin or urban fantasy noir Hell in Heaven, David takes readers on emotional, action-packed thrill rides. And his most recent series is a cozy fantasy series that follows a neurodivergent mapmaker on the search for his heart's desire, which is, again, so appropriate for this. David, can you tell us a little bit about magic, maps, and mischief and sort of the travel aspects that really key in here?
Yeah, thanks for that introduction. So magic, maps, and mischief. It's someone leaving one place and going somewhere else. So basically, they're emigrating from one country to another, which I have done in kind of, I guess, which you have also done. And I say kind of. It's because I grew up in England. My mum is Irish. I moved back to Ireland, so it's kind of doing it a little bit. So there's that kind of perspective on it of going not just to visit a new place, but to actually go and live there. And also then because Gretton is a map maker by trade, I suppose, there is quite a lot of talk about how you actually don't really understand the city until you start to walk it and see how it really is. So there's that kind of aspect to it as well, of like really living the city and understanding it. And I think you do get a different perspective of somewhere from just, you can visit a place many times, but you don't, it's a very, very different reality when you actually live in that place.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gretton really sees it through two sets of eyes, through his eyes on the ground and through the lens of a map maker, which is, I think, so interesting. Now, we mentioned already the Hitchhiker's Guide, which of course was the inspiration for the challenge that we did as well. Volo's Guide to Waterdeep from D&D, the Tough Guide to Fantasyland from Diana Wynne-Jones. These are real key examples of these fictional travel guides that are used as storytelling motifs. What do you think makes travel guides such an effective way to explore a fictional world, Mer?
It kind of toes a line between I'm sorry, I suddenly started thinking of 10 things at once. Hello, I have ADHD. How are you?
Welcome to the neurodiverse corner of the internet. We're all here with you. Please go ahead.
The thing about travel guides, frankly, is they're boring. It's like here's a restaurant and you can eat there and it has this kind of food and you'll spend this kind of money, and it's not terribly interesting. And I know they've improved travel guides in recent years, but they're also a really good way to tell a setting, because you can give information about an area that maybe even you don't plan to take your characters, but knowing it exists gives the city just that much more realism. So it's yeah, that's really it.
I love that. David, how about you? What do you think makes them such an effective way to explore a world?
I think it's as Mo said, I think in the past, travel guides were very kind of like, you know what to expect with them in terms of the layout and what they're going to cover, and very, they're kind of humorless. But I think there's a lot of humor to traveling and a lot of humor to finding new places. And so I think what's really good about doing a fictional travel guide is that it's a really, really good way to showcase a character's voice, whoever is the narrator of the travel guide. And everyone has a bias that they bring to something. It's to be a kind way, you could say everyone has their lived experience, but I think bias is probably an easier way of saying it. So that's a good way of kind of showing that. And also when you do a travel guide, there's kind of the expectation that people will know what the main landmarks of this place are going to be, and obviously they'll be mentioned. But you read travel guides for off the beaten path stuff. So when you're kind of doing it in world and with a character that's got a real innate understanding of this place, it brings a lot of not only character from that character, but character of the place as well, in terms of here's the main place, but here's where you really want to go. And you can kind of seed those things for the main story then, and open possibilities for storytelling and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they really are that nexus point between world building and storytelling, aren't they? They're so, because they are the ultimate exposition vehicle in many ways. That's what they're there for in the real world as well. They're there to be an exposition vehicle for the city, for whatever the focus of the thing is. So they are so useful for delivering information, but also delivering character and injecting, like you said, David, also the character of the place. So to me, it's not a shock that they've been used so often, both as in-world documents and as sort of narrative framing devices. Obviously, there are a lot of in-world examples as well. The Gentleman's Guide to Skyrim, if you've ever spent 10,000 hours in Skyrim, the Visitor's Guide to Ankh-Morpork, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the Shambling Guide in your world, these are all in-world fictional guides. So what value does that bring to fiction, do you think, having it as an in-world document as opposed to a framing device? Like what does that unlock as a storyteller? What do you think, David?
Yeah, I think it's fun to kind of like find what is the perspective on it. Um, and I think it's kind of like doing a panel actually and being the moderator for a panel. It's like you can just do, you know, and I'm sure like we've all seen them and been on them where it's like you're on the world building panel, talk about world building, and everyone's like, well, God, what do we talk about? Like, you know, where you say something very, very specific, like talk about travel guides and world building, and it narrows the approach, but it means that people can get into it a lot more depth. And I think, you know, when you kind of do that with a travel guide, and I think this is why a lot of these kind of whatever guide to this has become quite popular, because, you know, a zombies guide to New York City is going to be very, very different to a rat catcher's guide to New York City, right? And you get to see different aspects of the city, of this, because cities are and places, they're living, breathing and environments and worlds and characters, you know. And so to kind of, and like anything else, they've got different facets to the personality, they've got different hues and different shades, and they're different in the day and they're different in the night, they're different seasons, but they're also different depending on what you're looking to find there and what your bias is. So I think that's a really, really great thing to look at and say, okay, well, if I approach this in terms of my character is a map maker, what would their experience like of trying to describe this city as to someone else, and what they should go and look out for, and how they should navigate it. But if my character was an assassin, what would their perspective be? Like, you know, this rooftop is very, very good for this. Whereas the map maker wouldn't talk about the rooftop at all, probably, like, because it's all about the roads, it's all about the layouts and the grids and whatnot. So, and I think that could be a very, very interesting way of kind of approaching your world in terms of like all the different people that live there. What is their perspective of this place? It's going to be very, very different to the next person, right? And whatever their profession is. So I think that's what's really, really good about these in-world fiction guides, is that it's a real extension of character building and world building and kind of figuring out how all this meshes together.
Yeah, what I love about your answer is that you've really, you know, it's that POV lens, but it's also that kind of world building foundation points. Like there's a whole city here, but I really want to focus on assassins and how assassins see the city, and digging down therefore into the way like assassin culture intersects with the geography of the city, the way assassin culture intersects with the other aspects of the city. And so it really is kind of that foundational focus point as well. Really interesting. How about you, Mo? What was it that drew you to, you know, this idea of the shambling guide in your fiction? What did you feel like it really brought?
What I really like what David said about POV, because you who is writing it and who they think their audience is are two very big things.
Yes.
And you can use that as a way to, I guess the artistic term would be use negative space, because you can have a travel guide not tell you something that perhaps your main character or what your POV character wants or needs to know, because the travel guide did not think that was important, again with bias. Why I wrote it is slightly different. It was 2005, and I was working on a bunch of RPGs, and I was in a chat community with other writers, and we decided we were going to get together and write just a location book about New Orleans and send the money to the Red Cross. And I, for some reason, got an idea of someone who was a travel guide in New Orleans and loved her job so much that when she died, she just kept doing it. Only now she's looking at the city. If you are a zombie or you are a vampire, what do you need to know? And but I'm still liking the idea of what is not said. That's that's a key thing that could just drive a huge conflict. That could just carry your chapter along if you just focus on, here's a travel guide, but we're not going to tell them this very important thing. So, yeah.
I love that idea. And actually, it takes me very nicely to my next question, which is bias and unreliable narrators. So we see this a lot in fiction, in travel guides. We see it in game travel guides as well, used to comic effect, I would say. How can it be useful in a travel guide? And how do you know if you've gone too far? What do you think, Mo?
Oh, too far. Well, I keep thinking about most of the better travel guides talk about certain parts of certain places that may or may not be friendly to certain populations.
Yes.
And again, that's another thing that if they just leave that out and you're, say, putting it in Skyrim's terms, a Khajiit trying to go to a big fancy bar is not going to be well received, or the Wood Elves. Anyway, haven't played in a while. Now I want to play again. But it is a tool to sorry, you said too far. When do you go too far? I honestly don't know. I mean, it's I think maybe if you take it to the point of mirroring some of our real world issues and prejudices, and don't, I'm speaking very vaguely here, but don't make a good split between real life and your story. I mean, stories can reflect real life, but they need to be a story. And so if you can take too much about real life issues and put it in your fantasy, and then suddenly it's not very welcoming to whoever is trying to escape into that world by reading your book.
Yeah, I see exactly what you mean. One of our touchstones when we were talking about travel guides in our competition was the Green Book in America, which was this sort of African-American road tripper's guide, which had friendly things. And funnily enough, when you were talking about vampires, I was thinking the same thing. Like, where is it safe to be a vampire and where is it not? But yeah, one of the sort of more negative feedbacks on Baldur's Gate was it felt too real. The racism felt too real. And I think that's what you're touching on there as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can turn people off and it can be problematic. What's your vibe on that, Dave? I see you nodding along.
I'm nodding. I saw a Moonlight Bard say, "You'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy," which is, I always think, describes YouTube basically, but now Twitter. Anyway, I don't know. I often ask myself, have I gone too far when I'm writing stuff, particularly my Nick Halloran stuff? I'm like, have I gone too far? And then I'm like, if I'm asking myself that, then I should probably just keep going. as long as it's all like nice and not being mean or anything. And that's more in terms of like, just like, has the story gone out too much, and have I lost control of this? But in terms of like like unreliable narrators, I think going too far is when it gets in the way of the story, basically, or what it is that you're trying to do. I think for me, like, character always comes first. But it should never, character choices should never get in the way of the story that you're still trying to tell as well. Like, you need to kind of balance them. And if you get to the point where it's fine to have an unreliable narrator and they are fun, and all narrators have their inherent bias to whatever it is that they're doing, as do writers, you know. And part of that is to, when we're writing characters that are very different to our own worldviews and points of view and lived experiences, to try and find that, you know, somewhere, wherever we can find that. But yeah, none of that should get in the way of the story that you are also trying to tell. It should feel right. So if you get to the point where the reader just doesn't believe anything that's going on in the story anymore, that's when you've gone too far. And I think there's different ways of doing it. I mean, funny, just kind of a tangent, but it isn't. My son, who is 8, for some reason was listening to At the Mountains of Madness on Spotify recently. I don't know why. I don't know how he came across it. He said it sounded like something that I would like, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. It's gone from Diary of a Wimpy Kid to H.P. Lovecraft, and just done a huge big jump somewhere.
That is a sidestep, yeah.
Did your son try to introduce you to Lovecraft? Is that what just happened?
I don't know. Yeah, it was like, it sounds like something you would like.
Proselytizer, a tentacle proselytizer. This is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I've got the books up there. And he was like, oh, okay. And he was like, what do these old ones look like? And I was like, don't tell your mum, but I'm going to show you on a few pictures of them. But anyway, he was listening to it, and I was kind of like, he said, can we listen to it in the car when we're going? Because he likes, he's enjoying it. He's really into geography. And so he was really interested in this thing that was written in the late 1920s and 1930s that was talking about continental shift, as it was like an emerging kind of science at the time, and all these kind of things. And I was kind of listening. It's been a while since I'd read it, and I'd never listened to it before. And I was listening to it, and I was like, this is... I can't remember the main character now who we talk about, but he's always on about Danforth, and he's always really disparaging towards him. And I was like, he's really jealous of Danforth, right? He's really, because like when he is kind about him, he talks about how Danforth is like strong, and Danforth is like making decisions, and Danforth is this and this. But then it's also like, but he's gone mad, and like, he's wrong about this, and he's like he's been shambling and all this kind of stuff. And so, but it doesn't get in the way of the story, because it's just a layer of it, and it's one of those things that you can take on board and take it as face value or question. But also, At the Mountains of Madness is also a bit of a travel guide of Antarctica, of that area of Antarctica, and very much kind of looking at this, almost Michael Palin-esque kind of study into like this abandoned city in the Antarctic. But it's got this layer of unreliable narrator to it. And to the fact where, like, he also admits that they have lied about things before because they wanted to keep it secret, and they're only coming out with the truth now because people are going to go back there. So it's even from the get-go, it's like, I am a liar, but this is now the truth. And it's like, well, is it? Like, how much of it is the truth? And so it's a really interesting kind of thing to kind of play with that in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes double for games. Like, an unreliable narrator who's occasionally unreliable is still interesting enough that players will believe what they're saying. But if they're always unreliable and they're never speaking the truth, well, they're not going to pay any attention to the document anymore. So yeah, I think, and again, that's the point. Like, it's one thing where you can decide how your characters are going to react, but when you can't decide how your characters are going to react, I feel like the lines change a little bit, right?
There's got to be consistency.
Yeah.
If your character is a bit of a liar, they've always got to be a bit of a liar, I suppose. And but you also kind of, it comes with a price, because you see it in a lot of TV shows. You get that kind of roguish character that when they finally do tell the truth about something, no one believes them.
Yeah, it's the one who cried wolf, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's that kind of like, it's a trope, I suppose, at this point, where it's like you get the villain that actually tells the truth quite a lot, but it's like it's a truth with lots of omissions, and it's a truth from a particular point of view, and whatnot.
So we've talked about bias and unreliable narrators. Let's talk about satire, because satire is obviously something that is used very often. Again, many of the examples that I won't share again, but we've talked about here, they have been satirical. So what do you think is the place for satire in travel guides, and what's the key to pulling it off? What do you think, Mer?
Read a lot of Pratchett and try not to step on his toes. Really, it's such a big presence in fantasy, and satire is hard to deny. For me, I don't consciously think about real world reflections when I write. I'm like total escapist. And so but looking but when you do something like Terry Pratchett, it's a lot of it is taking is actually it's very neurodivergent, is looking at the world in a very, very, very literal way and taking real life things and just saying, well, that's ridiculous because if you took it to this extreme, this would happen, and I'm going to put that in my book. So, I mean, I think it's got a great role, but again, you need to make sure that the rest of your story has a similar tone, because it's not, if you just make a satirical in-world story, or if you make a satirical travel guide to your existing fantasy world that may not be that funny, that's gonna probably trip you up.
Yeah, interesting thoughts. Dave, what about you?
Yeah, I'd echo that quite a lot, and for me as well, like kind of the way that I kind of live my life, and it definitely bleeds into my writing, is like being autistic is like I do look at the literal um meaning of things and places, and then I'm struck by the oddness of how it doesn't do the thing that it says that it's going to do.
Yeah.
So I think when you are there is a level of if your neurodivergent profile allows for that, there is a level of living with satire just in general life and just seeing what neurotypical people do. I mean, the whole thing that neurotypical people do a lot of the time, and that is described as normal, is satire in itself, right? And it's you just kind of so you've got to take that on board.
The fundamental ridiculous's of the world is what I'm hearing here.
Right, exactly, and so there's a lot to kind of mine there, and I mean, again, a little bit of a tangent. I was interviewing R.J. Barker yesterday about his new book, which is Mordant's Peril, and this is a world where there's certain called Mordants that can hear the last 15 or so seconds of a corpse's thoughts, which turns out to be entirely useless because some people will be like, it'd be this profound thought, but in reality, people are like, oh shit, I'm about to die, right? So it's become like a very corrupt world where these like Mordants are like, oh well, they implicated this person or this person, and no one can prove differently and all this. But one of them is framed for murder, and it made me laugh that like he's given 4 days to clear his name, and he's assigned someone's assigned to watch him that needs to make sure that the character arrives for his execution alive so they can kill him, which is just like the most neurotypical thing that I'd ever heard in my life. And I was like, that it's so just that kind of thing that it's like, it is so true that there would be someone, it's this bureaucracy of like, we're going to kill this person, but they need to be there on time for when we're going to kill them, and they must be alive so we can kill them, right? Otherwise, it's ruined. So there's all this kind of thing that you can look at in life and go, all these weird, just things that we do that you can really kind of poke at with like a really like kind of, especially if it's in a fantasy world, then you can kind of. A thing that I always love is like you look at these things and go, well, what if we had magic to this? How would this change it? In a real kind of, not in this grandiose kind of, romantic way, but in this real, like, kind of petty human way of just being like, how would we really use this talent in the world? And usually it would be in the kind of most weirdest way possible, I think. Which most people would be like, this is completely normal, and a lot of people are like, are you sure? You sure this is normal?
I love this. So really like pointing out the hypocrisies and the sort of the odd juxtapositions that seem normal in world. So it's a really interesting idea, and I think a wonderful thing for a travel guide to do. So obviously with travel guides, often what we're talking about is locations. Do you guys have any tips for making a location feel more real, more lived in, more kind of authentic to the place? Either of you could jump in on this one.
I think a lot of it would be making sure you include the negatives. whether it be a bad part of town or a place where a famous battle happened or a place where an assassination happened. Like I said earlier, it's a way you can bring more to the setting that doesn't require the characters to be in a scene in that part of the setting. Making sure you show the dirty side is really I think the biggest key, because no place is going to be perfect. And if it is perfect, then people are going to be wondering where the Omelas cellar is. And yeah, I have a problem with description, and so I've been trying to use a lot of external tools to make up the fake cities that not my realism stories, but any of the fake cities I've come up with. And I have to remember, like, okay, so there's merchant and there's politics and there's living areas, but there's also places no one wants to go, or places that are too built up and abandoned, and again, bringing those negative things to the story will just bring more realism to the city.
Yeah, I love that. So like poor districts, maybe places that you can buy contraband, that kind of thing. Yeah. Crunchy city texture. I love it. What are your thoughts, David?
Yeah, so knowing what your city is rich in is really, really important, because that dictates a lot of, and what it is they need from other places. And that will dictate a lot of what goes on. Like, if your city is a port city, it's obviously going to be very rich in kind of fish and other things like that. So probably the diet is going to be very, very kind of fish. And the weather might be warm, and whatnot, all these kind of things. But they may lack in iron ore or other things like this, so this is what the kind of thing is. Another thing as well is, if it's a city, like all cities throughout the history of the world have always been melting pots, no matter what some people will try to sell you. Like, you think of even like Constantinople, you think of cities in Asia, like in thousands of years ago, they were melting pots of people going over there. They are multicultural, but what also happens is that when people come to live in these kind of cities, there becomes, like as Mo was saying, there becomes quarters where people from certain cultures will tend to kind of come together as well. So that should also be kind of reflected, I think, in the world a lot of time. And the other thing as well, for anyone who's lived in a city, unless you are walking somewhere across city, which will take a very long time a lot of times, traveling across cities is really hard. And you may want to go in a straight line across the city from one place to the other, but in reality, you're going to have to make various different stops, possibly different modes of transport to get there. And it's going to probably take quite a long time as well. And there are other people doing it. There's a lot of time in fiction where people are like, well, I'm just going to cross the city and go to the other side of the city. And it's like, well, how long is that going to take? Like, it's been described as the most populous city in the world, but it's like they're 5 minutes walk across the city and it's all fine. Like, these places are probably going to be crammed. There's going to be lots of various methods of transport going on. All these kind of things, pickpockets and all these sort of things that would thrive from these things. So it's like a logical thing of being like, you don't have to pull from the real world in terms of saying, I'm going to make this Chicago, or I'm going to make this. But if you've been to like these big cities like Paris or New York or London, just take that kind of feeling of population, of how the city is breathing, and put those into your cities, because if they're described as being the biggest city in the world, then make it feel like it's the biggest city in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to walk across the city. It hits different when it's Coruscant. You're absolutely right. Like, that's a different experience. The chat is yelling food, and thank you, chat. I think that's another, like, anything that's sensory, right? Anything that's immersive like that is a really nice way to bring kind of immediacy to a location.
And the smells as well. The smell of the city.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And to both of your points as well, you'll see different food in different areas, because some people eat the steak and some people eat the hoof, right? So like, it's a really nice exposition tool in a city to show, how people are similar, even if they're originally from different places. And I love food world building, basically. Thank you, chat, for shouting food.
Also, weather and position on the planet, because if somebody goes to Iceland in December and does not know what to expect with, I'm not even talking about weather, I'm just talking about the fact that it's going to be dark all the time.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty important as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things that always gets me. Particularly, I mean, I'm a huge fantasy fan, but you have these things, particularly in first books, where they do tend to travel around from one place to the other. But the one set of clothes are fine no matter what environment they're in, and it's like they really need to change clothes at some point, and like, you know, and not even for cleanliness. It's like these furs that they left from, like, you know, further up north when they've gone south are not going to be appropriate if they go into, you know. So there's all these kind of little details to kind of really make it feel real.
Yeah, I love all of that. So that makes it feel real. That makes it feel authentic. What makes it feel memorable? Because we want our readers, we want our players to walk away with, you know, a memory of the spaces that we've created, as well as the characters who've inhabited and explored and had try-fail cycles in them. So, like, what can we do to make our fictional spaces feel more memorable?
Oh
no, I broke them.
I think it's difficult because you kind of don't want to reduce it down to like this one special thing about it, right? But doing that is also very memorable, right? Yeah. So I'm a huge Wheel of Time fan, and I can think of most of the cities because they're all quite diverse in the kind of the way that their setting is and kind of the way that they're and all of them kind of have a very, very special thing about them. Like Camelin is like Camelot. Carenhine is like the political city. You know, Tarvalon is the one where the Aes Sedai live. So there is that kind of way of just having this like one thing that everyone knows about this place. But then when you, and you know, I think maybe that is true of everywhere as well. Like you think of somewhere as diverse as London has become, which it is hugely diverse. But people think of it. If you say London, a lot of people will think of Big Ben, right? Yeah. And that is the first thing that comes to mind. New York, the Big Apple. You know, Chicago, the Windy City. So they have these identifiers,
monikers almost, yeah.
Yeah, but then it's kind of like all the other stuff. Like I think we've both kind of mentioned that it's a living, breathing thing with its own personality. So if you think of like Ankh-Morpork, you know, it's you love the characters in Discworld, but you kind of want to see what's going on in the city more than anything else. Sometimes, you know, you want to see the different parts of the city, the different flavors, the different architectures. Everyone knows about the Wizard's Tower. Everyone knows about it. It's a huge building. It dominates the city. It's famous, but we want to see what's going on in the Broken Drum.
Yeah.
You know, we want to see what's going on in the library. We want to see all these different things that are very, very diverse from everything else, but all part of this whole. So I think I don't know if that really answers the question or not, but that's all my rambling brain can come up with.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing is, you know, giving a city a moniker, a hook, a kind of a sort of superficial identity is a really great way to kind of distinguish the one from the other when your readers are just getting into it, when your players are just getting into it. And to your point about the different cities with the different sort of focuses, like The Hague is more political than Amsterdam, right? Like that's these are two real cities that are very close to each other, but they're very different. I think it's a really good point. And also the architecture. Like I think of Game of Thrones, and when I was reading through Game of Thrones, it was like, oh, it's that fortress, so we're there, or oh, it's that architecture, so we're here. And it would be something visual or something descriptive that would give me a hook to help me figure out where we were. That is memorable, you know.
It's not unlike pitching a book to an agent or an editor. It's just like get your comparisons in there and then tell them why it's different.
Yeah, it's USPs and hooks is what I'm hearing here.
Right.
Yeah. The thing that comes to mind for me is negative experiences or experiences that are not the character was not expecting. Like you could hear from somebody saying that this town has the best food of this ethnicity, but they don't tell you that it takes like a ferry and 2 wagons to get there. And they don't tell you that, again, with, you know, do you belong here or not? If it's going to be a problem for different kinds of people, or if you never get to it, but that's like in their mind the whole time. Like, I never got that food from that city. That's going to be one of those things that's just kind of stick in people's minds. But that and people that are different. There's a lot of talk in chat right now about fashion.
Yes.
And so when you go to a city and people are a lot different than either your point of view character or even the reader, that's going to make it stick in their mind a little bit. No wagon parking. I'm sorry.
Another thing that just reminded me of something that you mentioned there about like, you know, the best food place and all that kind of things. When you kind of go to a city and you're like a newcomer to the city, and are you talking to someone that's from there? You may have heard of somewhere that's on like a travel guide or something. You mentioned it to them, and the people that live there will be like, "Oh yeah, I've never been there either. Actually, I've heard about it, but I've never been." And it's like, it's one of those things where I think maybe this is more to kind of keep things real and grounded. Is that the people live there kind of take a lot of the stuff there for granted to an extent.
Yeah. And also they may not want to mix with the tourists.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. The number of Londoners who have never been to the Tower of London is huge because that's where the tourists go, right?
Yeah, my friend lives like literally around the corner from the Sherlock Holmes Museum and loves Sherlock Holmes and has never been to the Sherlock Holmes Museum.
Okay, love Sherlock Holmes is the part that makes me wonder, but okay.
They're just like, I've just never got to it, and it's like, well, it's what they're like. Look, I work, you know, I work 5 days a week, and then I have other things to do, and it's like, well, yeah, I suppose so. Like, you know, it's that different reality if you just go in there and get to spend like a week or 2 weeks somewhere with no pressures on you to do other things, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Kids Asleep says, lived in Miami most of my life, never went to the beach. Lived in Belfast, never been to the Titanic Quarter, says another person. So,
oh my God, it's great. The Titanic Museum's amazing.
Would you say it's a memorable landmark of Belfast?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I always recommend people to go.
Yeah. And I would actually, that's a really good example of you can use your history to make a destination memorable. Now, everyone knows that I'm obsessed with history and archaeology. It's not my fault. I was born in a trench. But obviously, like, if there has been a major historical event in your world that you want everyone to know about, make the core premise of that in the city that you're in. And then you have like this exposition tool that also makes it super memorable. Oh, yeah, that's the square with the big guy who's holding a rubber chicken for some reason. Like, that makes it memorable. And then you remember about the thing in the history. Like, you can use these juxtapositions as well.
Holidays. Can't believe we haven't mentioned about that. The holidays of how people celebrate or how people show reverence and how they worship. All that's going to really make an area memorable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And traditions like Mardi Gras, traditions like Christmas markets, that kind of thing. These are all fantastic ways to kind of showcase your culture and make things really memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those interested, I have a whole video over on YouTube about building traditions and how they are basically storytelling gold. And I strongly believe that because you have all of your culture in motion and emotional, all doing the thing all at once. So there's a lot of fun character hooks and plot hooks and complications and things for them to get involved in. So yeah, absolutely. Holidays, traditions, those kinds of things are building gold, I would say. So if a world builder wants to make a city feel real, what would they learn about their fictional city by writing a travel guide for it? What are your thoughts?
I think like I said at the beginning, it's a way to describe parts of your city. I mean, it's like very early writer 101 that if you don't just describe something in a boring way and then put your character in it, because your reader's eyes are going to glass over, unless you're China Mieville, which I'm pretty sure none of us is. And but doing a quick travel write-up of different parts will make moving a scene into a city a little bit easier, because you've already got that set aside. It's okay that this sounds like pure exposition, because it is, kind of moment. And I mean, because people know it's like just going to be a paragraph or two. They're not going to get bogged down or get bored. I'm just speaking like neurodivergent readers sometimes get, like me. I sometimes get, but if
me, I'm the reader.
If everybody else is good at focusing on books and exposition, great. This is clearly a me problem. But I think a lot of it is also, there's the whole iceberg thought of story. Travel guides would let you fill in some of that 90% of the iceberg without having to over explain anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am not China Mieville. I am Chuck Tingle, though, just to get that out.
I thought I recognised the bag in the back of your thing. Yeah,
it's just over there. Yeah. I am not Chuck Tingle before anyone. Or am I? I think one of the good things. I mean, what would they learn by writing a travel guide for it? I think it's that kind of character perspective. I think it's that thing that we all mentioned it earlier on, that one of the things that I like to do when I'm kind of starting a new project is that, and when I've kind of come up with the characters that are going to be in this, that are the core kind of characters, is that I like to I like to write the same scenario in a very kind of short, like even sometimes a drabble, the same scenario from different points of view, from all the different points of view of the characters, to kind of see what their perspective of what has just happened is, right? So if you kind of do that in a travel guide as well, you're going to see all these different facets of this city that you have made. If you have a character that is part of the aristocracy of a city, the way that they perceive this place that you've built is going to be really, really different from a curator at a museum in that city, or like someone who's homeless, or someone who's part of the underclass, or all these different things. So if you kind of look at it that way, and it doesn't even have to be like in huge amount of depth, it just needs to be, get your framework, get your unique things about the city, the things that it's known for, the geography of it, and then just explore that through different, a baker's guide to this city, a librarian's guide to this city, a queen's guide to this city, an elf's guide to this city. And you'll see all these different things start to leap off the page, and you'll be like, okay, well, here's the story possibilities of all these things.
Yeah. A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, by the way. Very fine book.
Right. Yeah.
T. Kingfisher. Very good. How about... Wait, what am I saying? Mercer really answers this question. I beg your pardon.
Yes.
My brain is taking leave.
Do you want to hear a quick T. Kingfisher anecdote about travel guides?
Yes.
When I wanted my second book to be about Boston and not New Orleans, but my editor said that wasn't interesting to a worldwide audience. I think they're still angry about some Boston things. So I'm like, I'd already been to Boston. I'd done my research, and I'm like, well, I decided I would take a two-day trip to New Orleans, and T. Kingfisher, Ursula Vernon, was living close to me at the time, and I'm like, you want to go to New Orleans? And she's like, sure. So we road trip to New Orleans, and a lot of what we went through is in the book. I just made it more fantasy, but she nearly, I wouldn't want to say got into a fight. She wanted to get into a fight with our tour guide in the swamp tour, because he said that there was an ivory-billed woodpecker in the swamp. And what I didn't know until later, when Ursula was very angrily telling me this, that it was said to be extinct, and Cornell University was offering $10,000 if you could prove it. And she's like, I was just going to write him a check for $5,000 at the time, and we'd split it if he could take me to it. But we're here for you, so I didn't do that. So there's a joke in Ghost Train to New Orleans, which is the second book in the Shambling Guides. It's only for Ursula and maybe 4 other people, talking about all the fantastical creatures you can find in the swamp, but not the ivory-billed woodpecker, because those things are extinct.
Amazing. That is an incredible anecdote. Thank you so much for sharing. And an Easter egg I'm looking forward to when I get to that book. Very exciting. We do have an audience question, which is very good. So I will make time for it. What do you think is absolutely necessary for a travel guide? Like without it, it's not a travel guide.
A lens. Yeah, the lens of which you're approaching it. The framing, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's better than what I was going to say.
You can. This is a place that we welcome working thoughts. Mer, so please feel free.
I was thinking about a political center because that's where historians are going to focus on first, probably, and what leaders and politicians come out from that to affect the city in different ways.
Yeah. I'm going to add food. Yeah. I'm going to add a little bit of bullshit. From Herodotus, which is like one of the original travel guides that we actually have written down, full of complete nonsense, to most recent travel guides where that somebody's paid them to say that they, that's the best restaurant, or you have to eat this, or, everybody eats this, but it's actually the tourist board that's kind of pushing.
Mm-hmm.
I think just a soupçon bullshit makes it ring really true. So that's what I would say as my answer. I will say that is all we have time for this interview. So I want to say a massive thank you to my guests, David Green and Mer Lafferty. Thank you both so much for sharing your incredible wisdom.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
It has been an absolute pleasure having you both on the show. And that's all for the podcast. But it's time to talk about winners, because, of course, these two glorious human beings are not just Chuck Tingle and Mer Lafferty. No, they were the adjudicators for our Hitchhiker's Guide Challenge. I'm going to try and do a screen share here, and we're going to see what happens. Turn my face off. That's never good. Rule number one of show businesses: make things look easy. There we go. Here is our spectacular challenge. This beautiful graphic made by the amazing Irini, of course, our in-house artist. And we challenged you to write an in-world travel guide for something in your world. We gave you a bunch of ideas. We've already announced the shortlists, but it must be time to announce the winners. So, David, can you announce for the Standard League the winner of the Hitchhiker's Guide competition?
I can. This was an incredibly difficult decision because they were all really, really entertaining and had lots and lots of fun reading through them. The imagination was super, but I whittled it down and picked a winner. So the winner for my Standard League was Guide to the Stirifes by Lemmy Lou.
Woo! Congratulations! What was it about this article in particular that you loved?
It's like I said, it was very, very difficult to pick something out. But what I loved about this one was that it all felt like a really cohesive part of this particular world, and it felt like a very, very real travel guide to me. I really enjoyed that there was links to Preston and everything like that. Thought the artwork was really on point, and I thought the writing in it was really, really witty, very, 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 very like kind of official, but also officious at the same time, and which you would get from this kind of like sponsored kind of travel guide. And I really liked the kind of, as you can see on this page, it had like the kind of facts, and then it had the Miss Goofrey says, which is the kind of little bit of flavor into there from like kind of like that bias that we were talking about. So I really, really enjoyed this, and I'll say all of them were brilliant, but I thought this one it had everything that to that level that I was kind of looking for.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for being our adjudicator on this challenge, and we were absolutely thrilled to have you, and thank you for picking such a wonderful winner. I mean, They were all amazing candidates. So I don't envy you the task of judging. Speaking of which, Mer had to judge the Premier League, which must have been quite the thing. Because of course, our Standard League is people who are entering challenges, and our Premier League is people who've already won in the Standard League, and then we whoop them up to the Premier League. So Mer, can you announce your winner for the Premier League of the Hitchhiker's Guide competition?
Yeah, my winner is Sailor's Guide to Savellan Shores by Strixline.
Woo!
It was, similar to David. It's everybody in this category knew exactly what they were doing, and they did it well. It was a difficult choice, but the voice was the first thing. You've already scrolled past it, but the opening.
The opening quotation is
the opening line is this one goes out to every godforsaken shoreline I've lost a sandwich to, angrily scrawled dedication, which tells you exactly what you're going to get. Exactly. No questions. And it reads more like a travel journal instead of an official travel or official like tourist draw. But it's impressions, it's anger. There's some anger in here. Never coming back to the shore again. Blasted bird stole everything I had. Nothing I can do about it. It talks about how at one point how the journal is stained and with some sand on it, and so it really just throws you directly into this world from this sailor's point of view, and I had so much fun reading it.
Wow, a real in-world document. Amazing.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, I want to thank you both so very much for being here today, for being the judge of our competition. And I will say both of those winners will be receiving the first book in David's series, Magic, Maps and Mischief, and the Shambling Guide by Mer as well. I am always very happy to give away wonderful books by wonderful people to wonderful winners. So I'm very happy today. And just thank you so much for being here today, guys. I really am so grateful for your time.
Thanks for letting me be a part of this. This was great.
Yeah, brilliant.
Well, I will see you. Hooray. I will see you both soon, I hope. But for now, I set you free. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
chat.
Bye.
But we are not done yet because we still have the homework to do. Don't worry, I haven't forgot. It's time for the summer camp homework. So you may remember that last week we did She Tries to Share. Boop, 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 boop. This is the sharing noise. Yay, says Bitty Gamer. As I say, I did not forget. So we all know, I think, what summer camp is, but shoot in the chat if you do not, and I can recap it for you. I'm always happy to do that. There's, of course, the big old challenge we're going to be doing in July, and you can find more on this page right here or at summercamp, worldanvil.com/summercamp. And it's time for the fourth assignment. We've been revealing our themes, and as you remember, they've been based on the seasons this year. So we had our theme of spring, which was love. We had our theme of summer, which was growth. We had last week our theme loss revealed in autumn, and it's time to reveal this week's theme, which means I need to go into the back end of World Anvil. So you're going to have to give me just 1 second. And I'm going to try not to press the wrong buttons and blow everything up. Pray for me, guys. I do want to ask, what do you think is the theme going to be? I saw a couple of interesting. Despair was one of the guesses. I think loss was one of the guesses. What are your thoughts, guys? What do you think is going to be our winter theme? I feel like we haven't had the summer camp music for ages. Do you know that? So I'm going to inaugurally in our last week. Ukulele, guys! So if you're not familiar, this is the summer camp ukulele that we bring out every summer camp. I haven't brought it out yet, so I'm really happy to be, ukulele joy version. All right. This is the bit where I try not to mess up Brock's absolutely extraordinary work. Here we go. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, I swear I'm organized. Come on, where is? Sorry for the delay as I try to make sure I do not break everything. I think nobody wants that. I think it's done, question mark? There we go. Okay, so before I say changes, I want to see ukulele is the theme. Katoy says woohoo. I would love that to be the theme. Rock, we should do a theme that's just woohoo. Ondo is in the chat taking notes, by the way, on all of your themes. We got rebirth, we got joy, we got ice. Ice would be a fun theme. Loss, rest, rejuvenation, or recovery. These are really lovely ideas. Slumber, I could do with some of that myself, not gonna lie. Darkness. Ukulele and udon. Yes, that sounds really good. Just noodles, no notes. All right, let's see. Okay, I think I'm there. I think I'm going to share something that is not broken. Could I please, sir? Could I please see the thing? Thank you. All right, the Suncap page is back, and there we go. And our theme is family. So those of you who are just thinking like rejuvenation, rebirth, yes, we went with something joyful, but we went with family. Winter is cold, but a lot of cultures create indoor cozy families and celebrations. They don't have to be biological family. They can be found family. They can be your people. And of course, family is bigger than just sapient species. You get families of plants. You get families of languages. So thinking about family in your world is a really, really fun thing to do. And we wanted to bring you something joyful. So family is what we went for. So this is your summer camp assignment, should you choose to accept it. We want you to examine your goal as a world builder. We do things better when we know why we're doing them. It gives us motivation and it gives us focus. So I love the chat and I love this. Mwah. I'm so happy with your joy, guys, because it gives me joy. Thank you. I've got all my beans here with me. Hooray. All right, let's have a look. So basically, think about how you might use summer camp to achieve whatever your goals are as a world builder. If you're a writer, are you creating a space for short stories? Are you creating a space for novels? If you're a gamer, are you creating a new campaign setting for players or opening something up? Or maybe you can use the prompts to create enough world building for a new adventure in your world. And if you're doing it for mental health, what's fun? What gives you joy? These are all questions that you can ask, and it's going to help really focus you and make sure that summer camp is as useful as it can be. So that's really your first assignment, is why are you world building and how can summer camp help you? And then, of course, we have our beautiful hopscotch that the amazing Rock has prepared. And this week, you have, again, a bunch of options. You can roll a d4, and you might start choosing which articles you might need for your creative goal. Yep, that assignment. You can find a community or find an accountability buddy. I do recommend the competition thread over on the Discord. There's also the World Anvil community stream space. There's so many places on World Anvil where you can find other world builders who love world building and are also doing summer camp. And that's a really great way to harness the summer camp energy and turn it into something that is productive and exciting and fun. You can also, if you want to, take a little break, take a little holiday, refresh your inspirations. For me, that tends to be going to museums because I'm a nerd, but for you, that might be going to a theme park or making sure you take walks or whatever it could be. Or you could prepare your writing space. This is something that's important for a lot of people. They have a candle that they like. They have certain scents they like. They have a tea that they need to make sure they have in so they can write. I do write with coffee quite a lot. It's not really necessary, but if I don't have it, will I be awake? So for me, if I were preparing for this week, I might be making sure I have enough coffee in so I am definitely not running out. And you can also prepare a playlist. So we have the Embers of Inspiration playlist over on YouTube and Spotify and various other places. That, by the way, the track that we play at the beginning of the podcast is from that, but there's a bunch of others as well. But you might want something specific. If you're creating an Age of Sail campaign, you might want 18th century sea shanties. If you're creating a space campaign or a space world, you might want Star Trek music or Expanse music or something else. So these are all really useful things. You can just choose a la carte if you want to, or you can roll the dice if you feel that would be useful. I'm here for this kind of yelling out. Yes, sea shanties! Also space sea shanties. Oh, yeah, okay, there we go. Our brains are one. We're currently sharing the brain cell. Space sea shanties, that's where I'm at. It's the next big thing, kids. And of course, as every week, we've given you a bonus prompt so you can practice using a prompt. I want to say abusing a prompt, twisting it, stretching it, make sure it's matching your goal. So this week we have write a myth that reveals the true meaning of family. Now, you could be super wholesome with this if you want to, or you can be hella dark. I can see a vampire version of this myth that would be amazing. I can see a really problematic, like Game of Thrones style, what is the meaning of family? That's a very different kind of property than, say, the Dark Crystal, which is, has a lot of wholesome family energy. So think about cultures and traditions and how that's affected the modern perception of family. And this can be a really useful myth to kind of kickstart the way that your world views family, thinks about family, and everything else. That's why we chose this prompt, because myths are very good for like foundational stuff, and they really set a tone that you can then use and extrapolate on and everything else. So that is your summer camp homework. Oh, beans, my beans. Let me know if you have any questions. And please, everybody in the chat, give a shout out. Say thank you, Rock, because Rock, or Ondo, is the one who put this beautiful page together and has been spearheading all of the prep work. And of course, has been spearheading all of the challenge work as well. The final thing I want to say is we do still have just a couple of spots left for sponsorship of summer camp. So community sponsorship on summer camp, what does that mean? Basically, it means you get a prompt that is your prompt and you get to choose the winner of that prompt. So we have 32 prompts coming out and change over July. And one of those prompts could be yours. It could have your name on. You could give your own prize to your own winner. Just like Mer and David were judges today, you could be judges too. And if you want to do that, we have a very fine blog post all about sponsorships of challenges and everything else. And it's got the link in too. I'm looking for it now. Here we go. I found it. I'm going to share it here. So this is a blog all about judging and how to judge a world building challenge in general. And it's a really good time. We've had so many sponsors come back year after year because they have had a really great time. So if that sounds like it could be for you, we'd love to include you in our rack of sponsors. And of course you will get, wait, where's the badge? There's a badge. There's a beautiful badge. You will get a badge like this. It's replaced my face. That's how good it is. It will say Summer Camp 2026, not World Ember 2025, but you would also get a community judge badge, which is good times. And finally, if you would like to fly the flag, the Summer Camp flag, or bag yourself a great mug, a World Summer Camp version like this, we have, wait, have you guys seen the merch? I'm not sure if you've seen the merch. The merch is super cool. We have Just Here for the Vibes. And the other one we had is hydrating, cogitating, creating, like drinking water, thinking, and creating. And that's always my summer experience. So yeah, that basically. I want Janet to get red laurel leaves for her headphones after that. Nice. Just to kind of frame my head. I would look great as an Ulan, what can I say? So yeah, that's summer camp. It's literally around the corner. We are launching with our first band prompts next week. So this time next week, or an hour ago, this time next week, we will be launching our first 10 prompts. That's going to be 8 prompts on the copper theme, and 2 prompts which are wild cards, just in case you need a little bit of wiggle room, just in case you need something else. So 8 prompts for love and 2 prompts of wilds. Yeah, that's what's going on, basically. We are going on a raid. And our raid shout is Light Up the Forge. We are going to go raid Strixline, I think, who just won the challenge that we were talking about, the Hitchhikers challenge. So I feel like we should all pile in and say congratulations, Strixline, as presumably they get working on week 4 of the summer camp homework. Can't wait to see it. Folks, have an absolutely beautiful, gorgeous day wherever you are. I hope that is creative. I hope that is wonderful. And share that love with somebody else. It's always a wonderful thing to do. And I will see you next week for the opening of summer camp. I'm so excited. All right, my beautiful beans, grab your hammer, get ready for summer camp, and go world build. Thank you all for joining.